Hey everybody, welcome to lessonswithtroy.com. I'm Troy Brenningmeyer. Well, this lesson is going to be all about tunings and ways that I use to simplify them and keep them straight. So right about now in my playing, I'm playing Dobro in open G, different instruments in open D tuning, Lapsteel in C6, H-string Lapsteel in C6, C13, A6 tuning, pedal steel in E9 tuning. So there's lots of different tunings that I'm having to keep straight in my head. And there's some simple ways that I go about it. And all of them stem from what I've learned and I'm still learning on understanding the fretboard and shapes and patterns on the Dobro. So I thought I would share some of this with you. And I know a lot of you guys out there are expanding from Dobro, maybe getting into lap steel or open D tuning. So let me try to share some of these insights that I'm learning, at least, with trying to keep everything straight with these different tunings. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, let's just start off with Dobro. This is going to be our base as far as using what we understand on Dobro and then applying it to all these other tunings. And let me say, too, that the tunings that I'm using, I call more my workhorse tunings, like open G, open D, C6, and A6. Those seem to be tunings that I'm using a lot for different genres of music. So there's a lot of eccentric tunings out there, or that's what I'm at least calling them. And I'm sure any tuning you can use and use it as a workhorse tuning. But for me, I'm trying to keep it simple and just use a relatively small amount of tunings. So we're just going to stick to those tunings right now. However, I will be showing you some different tunings that you could use even on Dobro, that can expand some of your possibilities. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when talking about different tunings is think of everything in numbers: the interval of the chord, the degrees of your major scale, and then we can apply those to all of our other tunings. For example, a Dobro tuning is GBD, GBD. Okay, and that's huge. That GBD, that's root, third, fifth of your chord. So if you don't understand what root, third, fifth is, it's all based off a major scale, where the root is the first note of the scale, the third is the third note of the scale, and the fifth is the fifth note of the scale. So instead of playing it like, you stack them on top of each other and you play them at the same time. And so that's what they mean by root, third, fifth. Root, third, fifth. So when we get into sixth tunings, you're just adding the sixth note of the scale. So in G, let's say that'd be G, A, B, C, D, E. E would be the sixth of your scale, so you add that into your tuning. And I'll show you a sixth tuning on Dobro real quick. If you take this fourth string, now be careful because I've broken strings doing this too, but you can tighten that up to where it would sound like that. Basically tighten it up to an E note, and then you get what's called a G6 tuning. Let me show you real quick. Let's hope I don't break this string. Okay, so now I've taken that normal GBD tuning and I've done GBE, GBD. And now you get that kind of sound. So what you end up getting then is you may have a problem, like as you can hear with me. See how that's not in tune? Because I've lowered my B strings to match my open G tuning, because that's the third of the chord. So you may have to tune those B strings up to where they would be in tune. you're going to run into potentially some intonation problems that you can deal with the third of your chord being in the tuning, and then that sixth of your chord being in the tuning. So there's different ways you can go about that. And actually, I'm learning a lot from John Ely's site. He has a site called HawaiianSteel.com, and it has a ton of information about tunings, about adjusting certain strings and the intonation. So I highly suggest checking his site out. It's called HawaiianSteel.com, and his name's John Ely. He played with Asleep at the Wheel for several years. So let me tune this back to a normal Dobro tuning. Then I'm going to adjust the B strings. And by the way, how I go about tuning is I first start off getting my roots and fifths in tune, with Dobro at least. Right? And then I try to attack the thirds. Now, some people use a tuner, to try to get a certain amount of sense off. I try to use the root, right? The G against the B, and then the D against the B, and then play the triad, the G, B, D. Maybe even a harmonic. And then I get the lower octave in tune. Okay, so anyways, what you want to do is let's say you're a Dobro player, and you're wanting to expand out to Lapsteel. Get all your shapes down and memorize where that root third fifth is of your tuning. Because what's going to happen is when you start getting to other tunings, that root third fifth will just be in a different location. For example, in open D tuning, the tuning is D, A, D, F sharp, A, D, right? Where the root third fifth of that chord would be D, F sharp, A, right? In open D tuning. So that would be fourth string, third string, second string, right? Whereas open G tuning, it's on your sixth, fifth, and fourth string is your root third fifth, and then third, second, and first. Sixth, fifth, fourth, and third, second, first. So what you'll end up doing is you get these patterns down with your root third fifth, your what I call X shape. It's a nice movable shape. And then when you start playing in these different tunings, you start understanding, well, that X shape, the X part of that shape is on my root third fifth position of my chord. So say when you go to open D tuning and the root third fifth of that chord is on your fourth, third, and second string, you just move that whole X shape, and any shapes that you've learned in open G, you move it down a string, because that's where the root third fifth of your chord is in that tuning, if that makes sense. So once again, Dobro, root third fifth, root third fifth. Get all your different shapes down, understand your major scale and the intervals of it. For example, a major scale has half steps between the third and fourth scale degree and the seventh and eighth scale degree. So I know that might sound confusing, but you can use that when you're playing in different tunings. For example, you always know that the major seventh is right behind your root. And if you're on the fourth of your scale, the third of your scale is right behind that note. And everything else, if you're playing on one string, has a fret in between it, or a sharp, it is a whole step jump. Like for example, G to A, that's 1 to 3, or 1 to 2, root to second, and then A to B, and then B to C. So that's whole step, half step, and another whole step, And that would be from 4 to 5 of your scale, the intervals of your scale. 5 to 6 is a whole step. 6 to 7 is a whole step. And 7 to 8 is a half step. So once you get these ideas down of your major scale, and you can play them on single strings and understand what key you're in and what interval of that scale you're in and where your next note is. Is it a half step away or is it a whole step away? Is it, if you go back, is the next note of your scale going to be a half step away or a whole step away? I know it may sound simple to some, but to others that may be real confusing. But that's what I do to really help myself in different tunings, is I understand that major scale, where my half steps and whole steps are at all times. So the next note that I'm wanting to slide down to, I have a choice. I can either slide a whole step or a half step away. And if I understand what note I'm on of that scale, I understand the next note is either a whole step or half step away, because I understand that the half steps, something real simple to memorize, the half steps fall between your 3rd and 4th scale degree and 7th and 8th scale degree. So if you always keep that in mind, you can know where you're at if you know what the note is you're playing. So kind of a lot to learn, but anyway, so get that root 3rd, 5th down for the different tunings. The other thing is I use different open patterns, right? In open G tuning. For example, that X shape, if you kind of moved it to more of a major thing where it would be in front of your bar, or in front of, like if you're in open position here, that would be 2 to 0, 1 to 0, 2 to 0. And that kind of forms an X2, or what I call a triangle pattern. And that's right, that kind of thing open. Now when you go to open D, you're going to play that same pattern, but you're going to play it on strings 4, 3, and 2. Okay, that triangle pattern moves down because that root 3rd, 5th of your tuning of that chord in open D moves down. So a lot of people ask me, well, if you have a song in open G, how can you maybe transpose it to open D? Well, the simplest thing you can do is you can anything you're playing on your 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string, just move it down, and it will change the key of it. You won't be in G anymore. You'll actually you're transposing it to the key of D. Okay, because that all those patterns work in open position in G, but then if you want to take those same patterns, move them down a string, that's going to be the key of D. Okay. Now, some other tunings you could get into. Greg Booth, he's out there on YouTube, and instead of him putting the E on his 4th string, what he does is he takes that E and puts it on his 6th string. Now, what that gives you when you do that is that gives you, you have your normal G chord, right? G, B, D, and the other notes in G. And then because you have that low E, and you've got the notes G and B, got those kind of notes in there, that's an E minor. And as you can tell, that adjusted B string sounds weird against that E. You hear that? And I'm pretty sure Greg tunes his B strings. I think he tunes them with the tuner. And that's probably why, so that he can, don't quote me on that, but I think I've read that somewhere. And that's probably so that he can play that drop E tuning, and that would be the 5th of the E minor chord then. And that has to be in tune, whereas opposed to that B being the 3rd of the G chord, it likes to be a little bit flat. So it's a compromise for sure. But if you're going to do that drop E tuning, I would probably suggest to tune those B strings in tune with the tuner. But anyways, because you have the D in that tuning, That's E, G, B, and then D. So it's actually D is a flatted seventh from in an E minor chord. So it's actually an E minor seventh chord. Real pretty chord you get with that. And then if you wanted to avoid the D note, you just got a nice E minor. So, that's a nice way if you don't need that low G and you want to play some real lush minor chords. Or maybe you want that low E. That low E kind of sound. That's pretty cool. And okay, let me tune this back up. Okay, I'm not going to put my dobro in this tuning, but some people, Mike Aldridge, I think, tuned his B strings down a half step and would play like a G minor tuning. Now, I've written songs in G minor, and you kind of have to just avoid those open second and fifth strings if you want to play in G minor. But that's a pretty cool way to get that minor sound, is to drop your second and your fifth string down a half step. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, so the other thing that's cool about these tunings and that you can use to start moving them around and understanding them more is understanding where certain minor sounds are within a major tuning. For example, GBD, GBD, right? You have a minor kind of interval within that tuning. You actually have a couple. G, B, right? Could be, as I just showed you with that drop E tuning, that could be the minor third and the fifth of an E minor. So what that would mean then is if you're in the key of G, E minor is your minor 6 chord, right, in that key. So you're actually able to get notes that can work over your minor 6 chord in that key. The other thing you've got is you've got a B and a D. Well, B, D, those are the notes of a root and the flat third of a B minor chord. So if that's confusing to you, it probably is. Let me show you workable ways with minor chords. First of all, if you go up just 3 frets, you can turn this G major chord into more of a G minor 7th chord without the root. Right, because you get the notes F, which is your flat 7 of a G minor 7th chord. You get D, which is the 5th. You get B flat, which is your flat 3rd, and then it repeats. So once again, in a tuning like this, or to take that root 3rd 5th and slide it up 3 frets, that can either work as a minor 7th, and it also sounds cool if you maybe omit that B flat, right? That's your flat 3rd, and if you just play the 7th of or the flat 7 of your chord, the 5th of your chord, and that gives you more of a bluesy sound, because that's that flat 7 and the 5th. Right, that gives you a real cool bluesy sound. So just move any major chord grip up 3 frets, and you get a nice minor chord out of it. And then, like I said before, that second and first string, or your 5th and 4th string, can be a root and a flat 3rd, where this is the second and the 5th string is the root of that chosen minor chord. For example, in open G tuning, as I said before, B to D is a B minor, part of a B minor chord. Okay, so when we go to, let's go to open D tuning now. I'll just drop this down. So I'll take a break and I'll tune so you don't have to listen to me tune. Okay, so I got my Dobro now in open D tuning. That'd be D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. Or root, fifth, root, third, fifth, root. So remember how I said before, the root, third, fifth in open D tuning is on your fourth, third, and second string. So before I switch over to Lapsteel, I just wanted to show you what that means then and what kind of it sounds like too. Like I was saying before, that kind of X shape, you know, that gives you all your kind of bluesy minor pentatonics that are real easy to move around, are now on your fourth, third, and second string. There's your root, third, fifth of your chord. Or if you want to do the triangle pattern, and then what do you have in addition to that? Well, in open D tuning, then you have all these roots and fifths, which, if you know about rock music, you love roots and fifths because that's what's called your power chord. Or if you see it in a tab book or in a magazine, it might say, like, for example, D-A-D would be called a D5 chord. That just means a D power chord where you just have roots and fifths. There's no third in the chord, which means there's no deciding note that decides whether the chord is major or minor. It could be either. So it could work in a major song or it could work in a minor song. And that's why open D is real cool for blues and other styles of music like that, where you want kind of that lots of roots and fifths. Because unlike open G, you only have one string that has a third in it, a major third. So yeah, so you do get, like I said, root, third, fifth, and then also you have a fifth here, which, if you know, in your open G tuning, you've got GBD, GBD, right? Let's say GBD, GBD, GBD. So on this top, you've got your root, third, fifth in open G tuning, right? And then right below on your fourth string, you have a fifth, right? You have a D note. Well, in open D, right below the triad, the root, third, fifth on your fourth, third, and second string in open D tuning, you've also on your fifth string, you've got that fifth. So you do have any shape basically that in open D that works from your fourth string to your first string. That fourth string, now anything you played on it in open G, now you play on your fifth string. So I forgot to mention that too. But it's good to think of that root, third, fifth, and then also right there. You know, that fifth string now can take place of what the fourth string was. Okay. So it's real transferable when you think of open G and just moving everything down a string. And what you get on top is you just get another root note. And then on the bottom, you're kind of missing the third of your chord. But you have lots of roots and fifths. And then another root on top. Okay, another tuning that's similar to open D. Now, I don't use this much. I do have a tune called Shady Grove that I arranged, and I use what's called dad-gad tuning. D-A-D, GAD, where sometimes they call it open D tuning dad fad, because it's DAD, F sharp, AD. But if I tune that F sharp up, okay, so now we've got root, fifth, root, and then fourth, fifth, root. There we go. But anyways, I think I'm a little out of tune here. Give me just a second. Okay, I didn't want to bore you with my tuning there. Okay, so DAD, so dad, gad tuning, DAD, GAD. So now there's no third in your tuning. It's more of a modal tuning, they call it. And that ends up being like a sus4 kind of sound. Because there's no third, right? It's kind of sounds like it's just suspended there. And I know that tuning from, like Led Zeppelin songs where Jimmy Page would put his guitar in that tuning. But anyways, that's more of an eccentric tuning. Like I said, I have Shady Grove that's kind of arranged in that. And if you want to avoid, tune it to something where you're avoiding hitting that major third on your third string, that's a good tuning to use for that. Well, now let's get into some Lapsteel stuff. Okay, so before I get going talking about the different tunings I'm using for Lapsteel, I wanted to show you this Lapsteel that I'm going to be using in my upcoming lessons. It's made by Bill Asher, and it's his student model 8-string guitar that's based off of the Alan Akaka model, but just kind of scaled down and simplified. So let's see if we can show you from this angle. It's all mahogany. It's just I love it because it's just simple, and it's built like a tank, and it's just a great Lapsteel for gigging or for getting into these different tunings. I love the string spacing and the scale length of it. And you can go to Bill Asher's site if you just Google Asher guitars. But let's talk about the string gauges that came with this one. And they're a little bit different than what you'll see on John Ely's site. I recommend checking out John Ely's site at hawaiiansteel.com. And like I said, he's got lots of different tunings and information, string gauge information for the different tunings. It's just a really great site, very informative. But here's what we got that came with this one. On that first string, that's a 15. See if you can see me pick the string. And then on that second string, 17, 20, 24 on my fourth string, 28 on my fifth string, 36 on my sixth string, 46, and 70. Now, the different tunings that I'm using, the one that Alan Akaka recommended, and that, well, he uses a lot of different tunings, but the one that I'm learning in the lessons with him is what's called a C13 tuning. And that's basically, if you've had my lessons on C6, and if you've got a C6 tune Lapsteel that's 6-string, all you have to do is just ignore these two lower strings too. Let me just say that. So let's ignore these two lower strings and just talk about strings 6 through 1 right now. And that's C, E, G, A, C, E. So in all my C6 lessons that I've got right now for 6-string, that's what that is, C, E, G, A, C, E. Now, C, E, G, that's our major triad, right? And then A, C, E is a minor triad. So you have a major triad and a minor triad stacked on each other. Now, what you end up getting too is you get what's called inversions of the chord too, which I guess you do get in open G tuning. What an inversion is, instead of it just being root, third, fifth, you can think of it as third, fifth, root, right? Where you kind of, you take root, third, fifth, and then you add a note on top, root, third, fifth, and then third, fifth, root, and then fifth, root, third. Oops, yeah. So if you just forget about that third string, that's the sixth of your chord. You do get all those different inversions of your major triad. And then once you add that sixth in there, then it kind of becomes a different ball game, right? You do get some different sounds and you do get some different shapes. But keep in mind, that's the sixth of your chord, right? Keep in mind that where that lies within the scale, like what note is in front of it and what note is behind it. So let's just say we're on our fifth fret here. Remember that from 6 to 7 is a whole step, and from 6 to 5 is a whole step. Now, what you end up getting in this tuning then is you get 6 to 5 is right under your string. So the next note of your scale, let's say, is right below the note that you're hitting, that sixth of your chord. So once you add that sixth in there, then you're getting all your different Hawaiian sounds, and Western swing kind of stuff. But what I like to do is I like to take everything that I learned on Dobro and apply it to anywhere where I see that root, third, fifth kind of grip there. And then the lower strings in that C13 tuning, I don't play them all that much. I hear them like in intros and outros, and anytime you want that lush kind of chord, or anytime, let's say in the C13 tuning, let me show you what that would be. This seventh string is a B flat, which is the flat 7 of your chord. And then on this low string, you get another root, you get a C. So you get this normal C6 tuning, C, E, G, A, C, E. And then you get on your seventh string, I'm losing track of the strings, you get a B flat, flat 7. So anytime you want to make that C chord a nice dominant 7th chord, or you want that sound of a dominant 7th in root position there, just grab that 7th string. And then anytime you want that real low sound, you've got another root. And a lot of times in Hawaiian music, sometimes you'll want that real lush, where you're strumming all 8 strings and you get a real lush chord. Okay, so what is C6 tuning? The difference between that and A6 tuning, and the difference between what's called C6 tuning with a high E on top and C6 tuning with a high G. Let's go there first before we get into A6 tuning. Okay, so there's a couple different ways of doing C6 tuning. This particular way, the C13 tuning, is pretty cool and good for Hawaiian music. It's good to, when you have this gauge of strings, like I mentioned, this specific gauge of string, and you have what's called C6 with a high E. That means this first string on here is an E, as opposed to this first string being a G. Okay. Another really popular tuning for Lapsteel is that high C6 with a high G, and that would be A, C, E, G, A, C, E, G. Okay, now I can't really put this Lapsteel in that tuning because it would require a different gauge of strings. Once again, but that's a real popular tuning, A, C, E, G, A, C, E, G. But let's talk about the differences between that tuning and this tuning. To get that tuning, you have to have a much thinner string on your first string to be able to tune it up to that, to make this first string a G, and vice versa. As you go down, you got to change that gauge. So Alan would talk about he likes this specific tuning because it's a little bit fatter and richer sounding because you don't have that real thin string on your first string. So you get kind of a lusher sound, I guess. But that C6 with a high G on it, that ends up giving you, like I said, A, C, E, G, right? C, E, G, root, third, fifth on your third, second, and first string. Just like a dobro, you're basically getting that root, third, fifth on your top three strings. Sounds great for Western swing, or when you may want to transfer what you know on dobro to Lapsteel. That C6 tuning with that high G on top might be great. Now, when you get into A6 tuning, that's a way to get that same similar tuning as C6 with a high G, but with the same gauge of strings that I have on now. So let me show you that tuning and show you kind of the difference of sound. So right now, this tuning that I'm in now is, like I said, A, C, E. So you don't get that dobro triad on top, the root, third, fifth. You get a minor triad on top. So all those shapes, they're not as easy to apply to this tuning as they are to, let's say, an A6 tuning or the C6 with the high G on top. So to get that A6 tuning, it's going to be similar to the C6 with a high G, where it's going to be the sixth of your chord, and then root, third, fifth, sixth, root, third, fifth. Once again, sixth, root, third, fifth, sixth, root, third, fifth. That's what I'm getting ready to put it into, this A6 tuning. But that C6 with a high G, I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make sure you understand, is the same because it was A, C, E, G, A, C, E, G. When we put that into just numbers, it all makes sense. Sixth, root, third, fifth. Sixth, root, third, fifth. Okay, that's super important. And you can really start applying all that dobro information to these different tunings. Okay, so we got E. Let's just move down. We're moving this tuning into an A6 tuning. There's E, the fifth of my A6 tuning. Now I'm tightening this up to a C sharp, which is going to be the third, major third. And then the third string becomes my root. Okay, let's just stop there. Now we've got A, C sharp, E. Root, third, fifth. Now all your dobro information, shapes, patterns on your first, second, and third string now apply directly to A6 tuning on Lapsteel. A6 tuning is great for Western swing. It's great for getting that sound of the dobro sound. But now here's what we got. We've got root, third, fifth. Now I'm going to put this G. I'm putting that to an F sharp to make the sixth of my chord. So then we get sixth, root, third, fifth. So we get a dobro sound on our top three strings, and then we get a cool Hawaiian or Western swing sound now added with that sixth of our chord. Okay, and then, so we got sixth, root, third, fifth. Now, just like dobro, this whole pattern of these four strings, sixth, root, third, fifth, F sharp, A, C sharp, E. Now that repeats now from strings 8, 7, 6, and 5. It's going to be the same. F sharp, A, C sharp, E. Okay, so let's do that. I'll just put it in. Now, here's where you run into problems with this really thick gauge of strings. And you'll see it when you go to John Ely's site that he has a much thinner string on this 8th string. Notice how thick this string is, a 70. So I tune it to the 6th of my chord, but it feels really tight. Yeah. So I just tuned it from a C all the way up to an F sharp. So now we've got the 6th of our chord for an A6 tuning. Okay. This B flat or A sharp, it's the same thing. I'm lowering it now to the root. A, C, what was the root of my C6 tuning. Now I'm going to tighten up to a C sharp to make the major third of my A6 tuning. And then E works fine as you can keep that fourth, or I'm losing track of my strings here, that 5th string the same. So to simplify this, 6th, root, 3rd, 5th. 6th, root, 3rd, 5th. So then root, 3rd, 5th now is on our 7th, 6th, and 5th strings. And on our 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings. And then the 6th of our tuning is on our 4th string and 6th string. So if you just wanted major sounds, you can get all that just by avoiding the 6th of your tuning there, of your chord. And that would be on your 4th string and 8th string. That's where your F sharp is. And then you can always add that in there to give you more of that Western swing sound or Hawaiian sound. Now, the other neat thing with this tuning is you've got a major triad here, right? Let's say A, C sharp, E. Well, when you go down a string, right, to your 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, and you go up 3 frets, this is a really, really cool thing. Here's a major triad. Now go down a string with all your strings there, and then move it up 3 frets. You get the exact same chord, except now it's minor. A, C, E. Where here was A, C sharp, E, root, major 3rd, 5th. Here's root, minor 3rd, 5th. Same thing then on your lower strings. Here's root, major 3rd, 5th. Go down a string with all 3 strings, move it up 3 frets. Really cool trick there. Now the other thing is just understanding your major scales and you know how to apply that to this tuning, and then that does get a little bit more complex, you know, all your single note kinds of things. But as far as the chords go, you do get, you know, right under your fingers, you get your 1 chord, you get obviously your 6 chord, your major 6, and then you do get F sharp. So this, like if in an A6 tuning, you get an F sharp minor, right? F sharp A, C. F sharp A, C sharp. So you get your minor 6 chord in there as far as that F sharp minor chord. you get your 4 chord, F sharp and A, just without the root. That's a D chord. And then go up 2 frets, and you get your 2 notes that can work for your 5 chord. So just like this, in C6 tuning, we were doing that where you get your 1 chord. And then you get your 4 chord and your 5 chord on your 4th and 3rd string. There's your 4 chord. If you're in, let's say on your 5th fret, here's your 1. Grabbing your 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. Grab your 4th and 3rd string, and that gives you notes that can work as your 4 chord. Move it up 2 frets, that gives you notes that can work as your 5 chord. So anyways, that's a lot of information, I know, but hopefully that shed some light on just getting into these different tunings and understanding where your triad is, where the 6th of your tuning is for these 6 tunings, and the differences between some of these tunings. Something I didn't mention, open G works great for bluegrass. Honestly, it can work great for anything, but you're not going to get that 6th sound for Western swing and stuff because you don't have a 6th in the chord. Open D works great for a lot of different things, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of the minor sounds that you can get with an open G tuning. Definitely, you can't get all those minor sounds you can get with all these 6 tunings. A 6-string Lapsteel, you can play lots of different things on it. Why do you need these 2 lower strings? Well, it gives you, first of all, it gives you in an A6 tuning, that 7th string becomes your root. So you do have lots more options available in that C13 tuning that I had showed you earlier. You get those big, lush chords with the B flat in there and that low C in there. Do you need to have an 8 string? No. You can play a lot of this stuff. When I start getting into teaching A6 tuning, just ignore these 2 lower strings that, as I'm, teaching on this guitar. You can just ignore those, or I might show you like how to lower your 6th string down to a B flat to give you that C13 sound. Okay, so yeah, different A6 with that high G or high with your root 3rd 5th seems to work better for Western swing than that C13 tuning that I was showing you with the major 3rd without the high 6th the 5th of your chord on top. That C13 seems to be better for Hawaiian music, I've found. Because for me, I love having that root 3rd 5th on my top 3 strings for Western swing, because you can really play all that dobro stuff, and then just adding that 6th really gives you a lot more versatility. Okay, so lots of information there. Hope it helped you, and we will see you on the next lesson. Thanks again.